Well, tonight, a Little Rock woman has reclaimed a precious part of her family's history, an item that was nearly lost to the horrors of Nazi Germany. It was recently delivered to her home by a man who is truly doing remarkable work. And when it happened, Channel 7's Chris May was there.
How well can you ever truly know your family history? Celia Bernheimer had long known her grandparents were prominent figures in Munich, Germany, and that they had escaped the country in the 1930s as Adolf Hitler began to segregate, imprison, and murder German Jews. But she never fully understood the indignities they were forced to suffer until a few months ago, when a letter arrived in the mail.
Dear Cecilia, in spring 1939, all German Jews had to bring all precious metal to designated places, mostly local pawn shops. Large amounts of silver of your grandmother, Carolina Bernheimer, ended up in the Munich pawn shop. I am returning 111 objects. We now believe that among them are 2 objects that had belonged to Carolina.
The letter was written by Dr. Matthias Wenninger, a curator at the Bavarian National Museum in Munich. Since 2019, he has been on a mission to return silver objects like cups and candlesticks that the museum had acquired in 1939 to the descendants of their rightful owners, who had been forced to surrender them by the Nazis.
We have no documents why they did it. We have no documents why the museums bought it. We can only look on the facts and try to make sense out of them. And I would think that humiliation was the main purpose.
These were precious family heirlooms, stolen. Most were melted down, 6 tons worth in Munich alone. But a few hundred silver pieces were retained and lingered on the shelves of the museum until now.
They have a special value for the families because 2/3 of the owners of the pieces we still had there when I started my project did not survive the Shoah.
It's hard for us to imagine how horrific that experience was.
Celia was taken aback by the letter. While her grandmother Carolina had survived the war and even helped raise her as a child in the suburbs of Philadelphia, Celia knew very little about her life in Germany.
I kept trying to get her to talk about the war and her experiences. I never got a word out of her, not a word.
Carolina died in 1973, but now a forgotten piece of her life has found its way into her granddaughter's hands.
I feel like a child on her birthday.
On a recent Thursday, Dr. Wenninger traveled to Little Rock and hand-delivered to Celia the gift of a lifetime, her grandmother's gold-plated silver goblet that dates back to the year 1705. It's topped with a swan poised to take flight.
You know, I have other silver objects from my grandmother, but nothing with this kind of story behind it. As emotional as I get, you know, looking at this, I just cannot imagine what it must be like for the families who had nothing.
Dr. Wenninger took on the responsibility of tracking down the rightful owners of items like Celia's and delivering them to grateful families all around the world. But he knows these opportunities grow shorter by the day.
So this book contains 111 objects. When I return from this trip, I will have delivered 83.
And while he may never return every item remaining from the museum's collection, he will do his best as a small measure of respect emerging from the horrors of the Holocaust.
I'm not Jewish, but one of the first things I did was to call my cousin Max Bernheimer and say, would you like to inherit this? And he was thrilled. And they are all Jewish, so it, you know, when I pass away, it goes back to Jewish hands. And that was really important for me.
Well, one of Dr. Winninger's upcoming deliveries will be to northern Israel. Celia's cousins there will receive a pair of their grandmother's candlesticks. Now, these items have very little monetary value, but of course, for this family, they are priceless. On your side, I'm Chris May.